We'll do the opening chunks, call and response. The Dharma is vast and subtle.
The Dharma is vast and subtle.
We now have a chance to see this.
We now have a chance to see this.
Study this and practice this.
Study this and practice this.
May we realize this true meaning.
May we realize this true meaning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nikki, could you please get me a sip of water?
Of course.
I'd like to thank you for all being here, and it is so nice to be here in person. You look much nicer with real faces as opposed to little dots on my screen. Usually I always start my dharma talks to talk about the weather, but during Zazen, I'll get up and adjust some postures. And I want to say as a whole, you guys sit well. Thank you.
Many first timers here.
My favorite Zazen posture interaction happened this morning. May I adjust your posture? Immediately it's like, oh yeah. Just that gentle reminder, shoulders down, chest up, open up. And I thought, didn't touch, didn't say anything, just may I comment on your posture, and it was self-adjusted. Thank you for everyone. I will say that as we're sitting, Nona always said, don't fidget. If you want to move, move. Yeah, if you're feeling your knees, yeah, Zazen is important because it does all these things that we're not supposed to sit for. But the main thing when you sit Zazen, watch your bodies. We don't want to hurt ourselves. If you start having ice picks, don't, it's only 20 minutes, I can sit through it. Hands in gacho, bow, and totally rearrange yourself. You know, royal ease. Does it, you know royal ease? Yes, royal ease. That protects your knees, protects your hips, relaxes your shoulders. But if you really want to get lazy, put both knees up and hang on to them. You know, that's my emergency Zazen. Yeah, like that. That is what I call my emergency Zazen. And you really have to take care of your bodies. I would love to sit on a cushion, and I don't know what I did to my knee, but surgery didn't help, so I'm going into the acceptance of impermanence, and I'm sitting in the chair now. I love the Lotus Sutra, and I've been giving a series of talks on the Lotus Sutra, and I was going to write a Lotus Sutra. Your schedule and Des Moines Zen Center schedules fit together fairly well. So I usually will write one Dharma talk for both of them. And the parable of the city that they pull out of the sky just to give their, you know, Nolan died. Nolan was my teacher, and it really affected me deeply. If he would have died 10 years ago, this would have been a very different talk. And the reason was forgiveness. I thought, surely I've had a talk somewhere in my 12 to 15 years of Dharma talks. I have never once given a talk on forgiveness. It's like, ooh, what does that say about me? I really need to look at this on a deep, deep level. And I've kept every single talk I've ever given, and not even one touched on forgiveness. So I am going to talk about the practice of forgiveness today. And for those who don't know me from 12 years ago, 11 years ago, I'm going to give you some background. My first teacher was Nonan, Daikon Nonan Roshi. And his death affected me a lot more than I thought it would. My grandmother was in the nursing home for 10 years. By the time she died, she was sitting in a wheelchair in a diaper and didn't know where anybody was. And when my grandmother died, my mom called me and said, I didn't think my mom's passing would affect me this much. And it's like, even when it's expected, even when it's for the best, even when we haven't seen each other for 11 years, these things affect us. And we have to let it. First, I want to apologize for anybody who went through that process of me leaving the temple, because I was angry and hurt, and I lashed out to a lot of you. I know one person, particularly in this room, got it both barrels.
Now look at me.
Thank you, George, for not coming at me quite as hard as I came at you.
Well, allow me to offer my apologies too. I was board president. I should have handled it.
You know, should have, could have. We do what we do,
It
and we both did the best we could.
was a very unusual situation.
Unfortunately, it's not that unusual. I'll get to that later on. But right after I'll call it my riff with Nona, and I went to Shasta Abbey for 3 months. I should have spent another 6 months there to really let being in the embrace of a monastery. This is a cloistered monastery. You go in, you give away everything. You come in with 3 robes and a bowl, and you're in there for life. You have got to get along with your fellow monks. Once their abbot said, oh, I don't think I could be married to stay with the same person my whole life. I said, you're married to 50 people, Reverend Master Man. No offense, but you're stuck with these people your whole life, and it's like a marriage. And she goes, oh, yeah, I guess you're right. But they have problems and they fix them. And it was a great place to be, talking about forgiveness and moving on. Okay, we'll send you another errand. Could you get me a clearance? Of course. Thank you. I have background about Nona, my relationship. I'm going to skip it because I'm just going to say we were together for about 12 years. And it was an amazing 12 years, good. And Abhidharma way, everything is good, bad, and neutral. And Nona and I had good, bad, and neutral. But I will say, for about 2.5 years, I spent 50 to 60 hours a week with him. We had every breakfast together. He made me breakfast every morning, granola and tea, and every single morning I had to go get my own milk. He could never remember I drank milk with my tea. And I made lunch with him every day, and twice a week I'd come and we'd make supper together. So we spent a lot of time together, and he always said, the way to become a priest is to be around one. And that was my main priest training. And there's something about the intimacy of that type of relationship. We had some arguments. even at the time when he'd yell at me and I'd get snide and snide and sarcastic with him. Even at those times, it was great training on how to be a priest, how to be a Soto Zen priest. And one of the monks at Shasta Abbey told me when that 3-month period when I knew I wasn't coming back to the temple, we're not to be concerned with our teacher's practice, only be concerned with ours. At the time I went, but it's like, yeah, we have enough on our plate to be concerned with our practice. Because teachers aren't infallible, and Nonan said that, and I say that, it's like, don't put me on a pedestal because I'll fall off and we'll both get hurt in the process. In my heart, I knew Reverend Enya was correct, that I just need to be concerned with my practice and not everybody else's practice is not my concern. And especially at that time, I knew I had to be concerned with my practice. And there's 6 unpardonable sins. That's how I heard it translated. I don't remember them all. One is killing your mother. One is killing your father. One is killing a Buddha. One is disparaging a teacher. Another one, this is 5, even though I don't. 5 is sowing discard in the temple. And at the time I was going through my discord with Nonan, I thought, I'm doing 2 of these unpardonable sins. I need to rein it back. Unfortunately, it took me a couple years to do that. But I traveled around a lot. I went to a lot of different temples in that time. And every place I went, because Nonan was well known in the Buddhist community as being, I'll say, a poop, said, tell me a Nonan story. All wanted to hear a story about Nonan losing it.
And you had a plethora of examples.
And I'll tell you one of my favorite. I was up in Madison, Wisconsin. And I went there and I was there and Tonin O'Connor. Yeah, that's why I got the right temple in the right place. And somebody was taking me to where Pamela was. Pamela went there with me, went for the weekend. And she said, tell me Nonan. I said, I'll tell you this story. After Riadford saw it, we were all doing horrible. And Nonan said, he sighed, went up the 3 steps and turned around and said, you guys, pay attention, your life depends on it. And I rolled my eyes and thought, oh, yeah, listen to that. At that moment, we both looked and she was running through a red light. She slammed on the brakes. It was a busy intersection. We both looked at each other and said, yeah, pay attention, your life depends on it. That's not a funny story, is it? It's really truth. But every place we went, people were asking me stories. And sometimes I obliged and sometimes like, and I was up at Great Vow, Chosin Bays. I'll come back to Chosin Bays. And we talked about Nonan and I, and she said, rather you, that old Zen teacher way, whether you like it or not, Nonan's your teacher and he always will be, whether either of you want to admit it. Okay, another chastisement from a Zen teacher. The next day we had a visiting monk come, and there weren't a lot of priests at the temple, so I was in on the visiting monk tea. And I won't mention her name. She said, oh, tell me a Nonan story. And I thought, I shouldn't have to sit here in a monk's tea and say disparaging remarks about my old teacher. And I said, Nonan was my teacher for 10 or 12 years. I need to respect that. Chosin Bays looked at me and went, yeah, good Buddha. And that is a moment when forgiveness began. I didn't realize how important that was. For the first time, it's like, I'm not going to tell you Nonan stories. That's not what I'm here at this temple for. And that's not why you're at this monk's tea. That was a moment. And I knew that healing was beginning. And that was my first step in forgiveness. Now I'll go back to my dharma talk. That was all blah, blah, blah. What does it mean to forgive somebody? And it's not always someone else. There's a lot of self-forgiveness we have to do to forgive people. I find that self, Nona gave me my name, Shuji. It means practicing compassion. And the first person you have to practice with compassion with is you. Bump, bump on the chest.
I can see it doing it.
I thought, oh shit, sorry. Oh my, that name just got really hard to live up to. Because in our tradition, we get dharma names on what you need to work up to, not what I am. Forgiveness is never done in a vacuum. There's people that help us forgive. And a lot of times we're on the wrong side of this whole whatever we're supposed to be here. I was listening to a San Francisco Zen Center talk. They have a podcast. Bodhi's office come in many forms, thank you. Somebody's handing out Kleenexes. And they said, they were talking about metta, the Metta Sutra. I don't know, do you do the Metta Sutra here?
No.
I'm gonna say, as a Zen teacher, you need to start that tradition. It's just about forgiving other people, forgiving yourself. You never start the metta practice with yourself. First, you start with somebody neutral. You know, I'll forgive you for fidgeting during our dharma talk. Yeah, I can do that. That's easy. I can offer you loving kindness. I don't know you. I can tell your knees hurt. That's easy. Then you get a little harder, offering metta to the person that cut you off on the freeway today. Then you go to a little harder and a little harder. Finally, you offer metta to somebody close that really hurt you. The last person you go to is yourself, because that's the hardest. Nonan's and my riff did not start in a vacuum. Our arguments were not all his fault. That's a hard thing to admit, that maybe especially hard when you're looking at spouses or partners or kids, somebody close to you that you dearly love. Maybe all of our problem isn't them. That is really hard, which is why that's the last step. So listen to San Francisco Zen Center on metta, and he said, practicing metta and forgiveness is the first step towards happiness. Whew. That didn't occur to me. And I love happiness surveys. I love happiness studies. The one that was started in Harvard in the 30s, I still follow that. I love it. They've been following these people since 1930 to see what makes you happy. And you know what? Power and money does not make you happy. A good spouse does not make you happy. All the things that Harvard 1930 something researchers thought would make you happy, they don't work. And to tell you, you can go Google it, but I'm going to tell you anyway. They started with rich elite and poor Irish immigrants, because they knew John F. Kennedy was one of their original survey subjects. They knew that John F. Kennedys of the world would be much happier. Surprised they're not. And now they're pulling it's been going on for almost 100 years. So now they're pulling other people in. And it's a great thing. Spoiler alert, we do not know what's going to make us happy. Anyway, practicing forgiveness, practicing self-kindness, that makes us happy. It's like, ooh, I see that. The practice of forgiveness is hard. And one of the things that makes it so hard is practicing forgiveness before you're ready is just another form of stuffing it. Or in Buddhist terms, it's delusion. Delusion, part of our Bodhisattva vows, delusion is inexhaustible. I vow to end it. So we can't forgive ourselves or someone else before we're ready. Because that's just another delusion, and it makes it worse. Going back to Reverend Master Mian and Shasta Abbey. 3 years after my first one, where Shasta Abbey helped me a little bit, I went back to Shasta Abbey. They had just June of that year, they lost their abbot through, as they put it so politely, improprieties. Shasta Abbey has been around for a long time. They have 4 monasteries worldwide and a bunch of sanghas. They call them priories because they're based in the Church of England. Order for Buddhist Contemplatives, the OBCs. Worldwide organization almost fell apart through Reverend Master Echo's improprieties. What are they going to do? They hired Faith Trust Institute to come in. It's a great organization, and they do how to heal a congregation after your minister or board or somebody does harm. And I was able to sit through once a week. We'd sit and watch these CDs at the time on a big screen TV, and then 20 to 50 of us monks would sit around and talk. What does it feel like to be betrayed? And one of the main things they talked about was the boundaries. And it wasn't Buddhist. There was a Lutheran minister that I would have ran away with if I was anywhere near her congregation. She was amazing, talking about boundaries. There's a rabbi. There was a Catholic priest. And Chosen Bays was the Buddhist of the group. Reverend Chosen from Great Vow Monastery. And they all talked about different traditions and how this happens over and over and over again. And as clergy, what can we do to prevent it from happening? And as a Sangha, how do we repair this? And I sat through there and I saw all the things that happen all the time to us as people, to families. My grandmother and her brother never talked to each other when he came home from World War I. She was born in 1890. He came home from World War I, and the family farm wasn't doing good, and he blamed my grandmother and her husband from the farm going. They lived in a town of 3,000. He'd see her walking down the road, and he'd cross the road. Because there's no forgiveness and no listening. So it happens big and little. And I used to say understanding the problem is 90%. Now I've dropped that down to about 50%. My father was a mean, sadistic, icky guy. Say no love lost when he died, but interestingly enough, there was. But intellectually, I could understand why he was so angry. He went to the Navy at 18. He was in the Navy for 4 or 5 years. He came out with 2 kids, and mom was pregnant with me. Came back, worked the same job that he had before he went to the Navy, and worked there his whole life. A carpenter at the Havelock shops in Lincoln, Nebraska. Worked on the same machine for 32 years. I'd be crabby too. intellectually, I can understand that. Going from mind to heart, I think of that wonderful shin, the Japanese word shin. A lot of you may have shin in your knee. It's a heart, mind, and what happens when the heart and mind are one. That's the first step towards forgiveness. Yeah, I can understand why he was crabby. If I was 23 and had 3 kids, I'd worked at a dead-end job and could barely make milk money for my kids, I'd be crabby too. That's not a way I want to start my life. He and mom had no time to be a couple. Yeah, I'd be a crabby spouse too. And I'd resent the hell out of those kids. Put that in your heart. What comes in there? Compassion. Suddenly, yeah, I can understand why Nolan was the way he is, down to your heart. I can understand. Reb Anderson, who's now a worldwide great teacher, admired Nolan greatly. He was one of Nolan's, I won't say students, but he'd come here and spend the summer with Nolan because Nolan was such a great teacher. What happened to all those people following Nolan? What happened to the 5 priests he ordained? Everybody he cared for left. No wonder he was a little crabby. Suddenly there's compassion there. Heart, I mean, keep wanting to put my heart here, I guess that's good. Mind of intellectual understanding. Heart to, yes, I understand. Goes to compassion. Shasta Abbey. We were having these Faith Institute things. I'm totally not following my talk, so I'm just blabbering. So I don't, where I'm not even gonna pretend like I'm talking about what I'm trying to talk about, but that's okay. Shasta Abbey, we're watching these videos on how to heal after great harm's been done to you. I'm talking to, there's 2, 3 teachers there that I really bonded with, and Reverend Master Meon, the abbot, was one of them. And we were talking, and she said, okay, so you have heartfelt forgiveness. Yeah, we can all forgive. That's easy, that's Buddhist. We have compassion. That's fine. You need to take sympathy. No way. Especially when you get to somebody like my father. I'm gonna say one dad's story. I had a dog. So this is what I grew up with. His name was Dalvaney. My given name was Valdene. I took all the letters of my name and made it Dalvaney. So I basically named the dog after me. Dad called the dog, wouldn't come, took out a gun, shot it. Dead. He turned to me and said, that'll teach it not to come when I call. I used to sit back and laugh. Ha ha ha. My dad was such a jerk. And Shasta Abbey and Monk said, you cannot laugh. There's nothing funny about that story. Okay, intellectually, I can understand why my dad did that. Comes down to my heart, I can do compassion. I cannot in my heart find sympathy for somebody who shoots their kids' dogs. No sympathy there. Ooh, what happens? What is sympathy? What happens when you start feeling sympathy for somebody? Oh, man. And what, that poor guy, what type of karma is he building up? What type of karma is that guy that cut you off in the hallway building up? That's sympathy, and take on some of that. At some point in my practice, I used driving a lot because I was such a freeway jerk. I had to be the fastest. I had to, somebody couldn't pass me because it meant that I wasn't. That their life was more important than mine because they made me slow down a bit. At some point, I suddenly realized when somebody would be a jerk on the freeway, I'd do the half gasho because I'm a good driver. I'd gasho and say, I wish them peace. May they get to where they're going safely and not cause any harm. I do not know when that started. I don't remember the first time I did it. That is when sympathy comes in. Suddenly, I wish them peace. Forgiveness. It's not easy. Fukan Zazengi, take the backward step and shine the light inward. So, I'm going to jump to the end of the metta. Say, how do we forgive ourselves for everything? There's so much in my bucket of stuff that I wish I could forgive myself for. Intellectually, why did you say that? I guess I'm stupid. It starts here, goes into your heart. Shin Shin Ming, do you guys, you do the verses on Faith Mind. The burdensome practice of judgment brings annoyance and weariness. Every time I'm annoyed at somebody, I can take it back. Self-judgment usually. So-and-so, blah, blah. It's because I'm judging myself and I put myself, who's better at bowing, me or them? So I can be annoyed at their perfect bowing. Annoyance always comes back to self-judgment to me. So what if we get the judgment out of ourselves, self-judgment out of ourselves, and judging other people too, as long as we're at it. But we're going for the brass ring here. We're going for the hard stuff. Self-judgment. What happens if we can stop self-judgment and forgive ourselves for some days? Then what happens if we start having compassion towards ourselves? Shuji, we all need to be Shuji, at least sometimes in our lives, practicing compassion. And all of us, the hardest person to practice compassion with is you. Let's practice self-compassion. And if you say it's easy, I will say in my Zen teacher's voice, you're not being truthful to yourself. It's a false easiness if you think self-compassion and just drop self-judgment is easy. It's hard. That's why the Metta Sutra, the last person we practice loving kindness with is ourselves. And then we take it to Reverend Master Mion's last step. Say, what if we practice sympathy to ourselves? And that's not the woe is me sympathy. Everybody's so mean to me. I call it the nobody likes me, everybody hates me, guess I'll go eat worms. Because when I was a kid, there was a song, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, guess I'll go eat worms. Big, fat, juicy worms, little, tiny, skinny worms. Well, and I forget the last verse. That's not true sympathy. True sympathy is heart-wrenching. Yes. Occasionally I can get true sympathy, usually not. none was, going back to my closing statements, none was put on a memory unit a while ago. And I hear that he became nice.
He did.
I jokingly say, when he lost his memory, he forgot that he had to be an asshole. Sorry about swearing, but because I think a lot of that is false vibrato. I was in Omaha in mid-June, and I really wanted to go see him. But it was his birthday, and I thought, you know, if he still hates me, I didn't want to ruin his birthday. And I can honestly say that was the reason. It wasn't, I was afraid to go see him. And I knew I'd be coming here soon, and I'd go see him then, such as this afternoon. But he didn't make it. Or I should say, I didn't make it. I really hoped we could chat over ice cream. One of my favorite lessons was he said, ice cream is suffering, because when the bowl is empty, you look at it, there's no more ice cream. And I was hoping we could laugh over his empty bowl of ice cream. But over the last 10 years, I've done a lot of work with him, even though he wasn't a willing participant. Maybe he's done a lot of work with me, I don't know. But as Reverend Enya said, my practice is my practice, my teacher's practice is my teacher's practice. So I did work with Nona whether he was here or not, because that's my practice. I remember his beautiful hands offering incense. It was an offering. Holding his bowl for oryoki. And the very first time I understood emptiness, sitting there in that room chanting the Heart Sutra and looking at that old worn out kesa of his, seeing the fabric, and all of a sudden I knew everything is good. And I was like, Nona, I get it. He said, yeah, go back and sit down. And when he said, Shuji, I understand life and death and the world. I say, yeah, go back and sit down. We all get those moments. And don't make a big deal out of it. Because as the teacher said at Shasta Abbey, yeah, you have these awakening experiences, and that's when the work begins. That's not the end. Nona's way of saying that was go back and sit down. I remember him with the love that one has for their teacher. I remember his deep insight of the sutras. And one of my Facebook friends who never met him wrote about hearing one of his talks on the Tenzo, Shopo Tenzo. It's like, yeah, don't dance over good ingredients. It's one of my favorite things. I learned from him about forgiveness, turning that into compassion, and then tossing sympathy in that wonderful soup he used to talk about. The song is a soup. We're all in together. One of us the carrots, one of us the onions, we have potatoes. I like to say I was the garlic. That's the soup. And he always said, I'm the big potato. And we just mix in until we get this wonderful thing called Sangha, this wonderful thing called, in my life right now, forgiveness, compassion, sympathy, is this wonderful soup. How I feel about me. And somehow we all work together to help us each become a decent human being. And that is how we manifest the Bodhisattva vows of beings are numberless. I vow to free them, and that's freedom from suffering. We go out this door, we have taken the vow to free all beings from suffering. Big vow. Are we gonna do it? Probably not. But you know, I can slow down, let that car in front of me and not be angry. Driving down on 80 going home. Yeah. Nothing else, I'm freeing myself from suffering from going, stupid drivers. Free each other from suffering. Yeah, we make each other dinner. We say goodbye. We say hello. Little things free from suffering. I'm gonna have one last quote from Reverend Master Beyond. It's a long one. In a talk she gave on forgiveness and compassion. There's a time for looking into things, letting them hurt, and also she's British, so she letting them hurt, yowling if need be, sorting them out, digging the gravel and grit out, then giving it a good wash. Then look what we have done, and look what others have done to us. We've all hurt other beings, and we have all been hurt by other beings. It's only human. No one is purely evil, hurting other beings. And no one hurt us more than no one is purely evil and they hurt us more than other beings. We will continue hurting others and being hurt by others, but we can practice acceptance and compassion. Accepting what we have done and what has been done to us and letting go and moving on. This is learning. And that's my wish. I know that I have a lot more to do with forgiveness. And I can't believe this is the first talk I've ever given on forgiveness and compassion. And even more work with sympathy. It's all wrapped up in this wonderful life we have of living in the dharma.
Taking questions or comments?
Questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you talk a lot about that self-forgiveness is the hardest. Why is that?
Oh boy. I'm gonna quote Kyoki. Why is the reason we got into Buddhism? We're all trying to answer that why question. For me, I'll say me. I don't know how any of you feel. I just feel like I have to do everything right the first time. And to forgive myself is to admit that I maybe didn't do it correctly. And so my first step in forgiveness is realizing maybe I didn't handle that conversation the best I should have. And I find myself doing a lot with people I'm close to, like Pamela, that I live with day in, day out. I got mad at her a while ago. I had some ears of corn, I threw them all out in the backyard. A dozen ear of corn. Later on that night, I went and picked them up. I left one. She came in yesterday and said, you know there's an ear of corn out there? Yeah. How did it get out there? So I threw it out. Why? I said, I was mad. At me? Yeah. What was it about? I said, I don't know, I forget. Which is true.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, sorry I threw the ears of corn out because I was so mad at you. And it's like also it's like telling me, just throwing ears of corn out in the backyard doesn't do anything. Don't know why. I totally forget why. I probably would have forgot it all, the whole thing, if I hadn't left an ear of corn out there. Pamela thought Harry did, and I could have very well blamed Harry for it. So, does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Sorry, can I just add to that a bit? Oftentimes, our inner critic is louder than anything else, so self-compassion has to be louder Rick, saboteur, nearby. And sometimes it takes talking through that piece with somebody else, or writing down your thoughts to see where you're walking around.
I will say sometimes therapy really helps. Just like I don't think I could have made it through this without Reverend Master Mia. Not that she was a therapist, but she really helped. Where's your practice in this? Yeah, it's important to talk to somebody. Do you have a question?
What do you see as the difference between sympathy and compassion?
I had a definition for that. I want to say you're planting flowers. First is a little dirt you dig up, that's easy to dig up. That's forgiveness. Then you get down into the harder dirt, that's compassion. But you're planting daffodils and you need to get 8 inches. You get down that clay, that's sympathy. All I can say, it's a deeper, harder thing to really feel. Equanimity, it's kind of like, it's, I can't think of the words. Feeling wise, it's like, I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm really sorry you feel that way. I can feel how you feel that way. Sympathy seems like a real, I understand, I can feel it too, almost more empathetic. So it's, I'll say it's empathy. Maybe I could do that too if I was in that spot. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Anybody on Zoom have a question? Ah, somebody does. We need to do something.
They need to turn off.
Hi, I'm Margaret, and I live in
Oh,
Kansas.
yes.
Hi, Susie.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for such a wonderful talk. So, why Kansas?
Why am I in Kansas?
Yeah, what's that about?
You know,
Dharma. Yeah. Thank you.
Pamela had friends there. And Manhattan is a nice size of town. And it's a low cost of living. I will say Kansas wouldn't be my first choice, but it was Pamela's first choice. And why Kansas? I don't know.
Why not?
Why not?
Thank you.
Good. I think it's an okay move for us. I do wish it had a Zen center that I could go to and have people. I wish I could just walk into it, but it doesn't. So
This is your home temple though, right?
this is my home temple, and the more I'm here, the more it feels like home.
Thank you, ma'am. You want to do a closing chant?
Closing chant, call and response. The many beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across. The many beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across. Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road. Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road. Dharma, vowing to wake to them all.
Dharma gates are countless, vowing to wake to them all.
Buddha's way is all embracing, vowing to follow through.
Buddha's way is all embracing, vowing to follow through.
Thank you, Shuji.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have tea and conversation in the community room for those who want to hang out.
And I also want to make the offer, if anybody would like to speak more about this privately, I'm available for Zoom Dokusan. I feel like I dump stuff here sometimes, then I'm gone for a month, and if somebody really wants to say something.
How would people get in touch with you?
My email,
Okay,
V as in Valdene, R as in Rose, Mintz as in Mintzmyer, VR Mintz @msn.com.
great.
Had that email for so many years, I just can't bear to start.
It's hard to find.